Hello, we're going to do a sew along. We're going to sew a pillow with piping and an invisible zipper. So that'll allow you to remove the pillow form and wash the pillowcase. And what I've done here is I've drawn, first I printed out this 20 by 20 form for the pillows. And one of the things you do need to do, let me get to this first. Let me get my pillow. I'm going to get a smaller pillow form so it'll look better on camera. Okay, got the smaller pillow form. What you want to do is measure your pillow forms, because even though it'll say it's a 14 by 14 or a 20 by 20, it's never that exact size. So that may affect how you cut your fabric out. Come over here, put the end of the tape on the stitch line. This is a 14 by 14 pillow, and it is 15 and a quarter inches. So often you'll find that when you get these pillow forms, they're going to be a little bit bigger than what they say they are. Yeah, that's 15 and a half. So even if it was a 15 by 15 form, it would still be a ½ inch bigger, which is kind of normal. So anyway, measure it. Don't assume it is what they say it is. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to taper our corners. You see I've drawn in red, exaggerated here, on how far you want to go in. And this is a ½ inch on this piece here, and this is an inch. So you can go in up to 3/4 of an inch. You actually can go up to an inch on really big pillows, because the bigger the pillows are, the bigger the dog ears are on them. And so you probably just need to kind of test it and see what works best for your pillow. But generally I do ½ inch minimum on smaller pillows, 3/4 of an inch to an inch on larger pillows, depending on the fabric and the pillow form that I have. The other thing I do is I cut my fabric a little bit smaller than you see on here. I'm cutting it 19 by 19, and I've got a 20-inch pillow form. Then I'm going to do a ½ inch seam, so it's going to end up being like an 18 by 18 by the time I'm finished with it. But the reason I do that is I like my pillows to remain fluffy. I don't like them flattened out, and so you can do your seam allowances smaller and smaller based on if you want your pillow form to stay fatter and fatter. Anyway, so that's what we're doing here. But taper the corner, come in your ½ inch, 1 inch on this one is what I've done. Put a dot there, and then you come in on this one. I'm coming down 6 inches from the top, so it's 6 inches. On a smaller pillow, you want to come down to about 4 to 4.5 inches from the top and put your little mark there, and you do it on every side. That gives you your point to start tapering into your mark. So you looking at this, I hope it makes sense to you. So I've marked there, I've marked there, I've marked there, I've marked there, then from here to there, here to there, all the way around. So do that. Decide what you want your seam allowances to be, and then what you want to cut your fabric size, and then we'll be ready to go. I've already cut mine out. I've already serged the edges, and I've serged the bias tape, and I'll show you how to join your bias tape next. Just bias tape is cut fabric on a 45-degree angle. That allows it to go around corners easier. So just do a search on cutting bias tape and you'll get that explanation. There's a million videos out there, so I'm not going to go through that, but I am going to show you how to join them together, because I use a little bit different technique than some of the other people use. So let's get to that next. Okay, I'm going to show you here real quickly how to join your binding. I've got 2 little small strips cut out here to show you. So the important thing is you put these right sides together, and then your part sticking out here and here need to be equal. Okay, so I've done this enough where I can eyeball it, but if you need to measure and draw lines, you can do that. So it's up to you, but as long as they're really close, you'll be fine. So sometimes I tell people to be safe. I can take a ruler and a marker and come in, an inch. And since I don't have that much length here, I don't want to come in a full inch, but mark a line there, and then do the same thing on this side, mark a line at an inch, and then you'll have something to mark up along the lines as to what you want to do your overhang on. So you can try that too. So anyway, just make them equal, and then you're going to sew from the end sticking out. The longest piece will be at the top, and then we're going to sew down to this corner here. So let me show you real quickly. We're going to sew from here right where that crosses. It's important that we start right there, and then down here right where this part crosses here. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and draw a line, because I'll encourage you to do that when you're doing this, because that's how important this stays straight. Because if it's not straight, when you get down to the end and you fold this over, you're going to end up with something like this, where you've got this overhang here. So that's why it needs to be sewed perfectly on a straight line, so that when you fold it over, you got equal distance between the two. So I'll tell you what, let me go ahead and draw a line, because that's the most important part of this. Thing's not wanting to line up. Okay, about right there. Move this up a little bit. Okay, that looks about equal. We're going to put a ruler across here and just draw us a little line so that we have a good straight stitch when you come down through there and sew it. It gives us something, a guide to go by. Sewing machine's in the way. That should be good enough. Okay, I'm just going to sew along that line right there. And since it's on the wrong side of the fabric, it's not going to show up. So let's take this and put it under the needle. Get everything lined back up. We want to make sure that each one of these black lines here intersects with the edge of the fabric. And right about there. Okay, here we go. Right where it crosses there. I didn't quite get it perfect, but hopefully it's close enough. Let's see what happens when we lay it out. Yeah, see right there, I'm not quite, I got a little bit off when I was going over. I'll press it and it should be okay. But if you're off just a teeny bit, it will be alright. But I tell you what, let me press this. Cut my threads off here and I'll press it. And I'm going to go ahead and use pinking shears to trim down the seam allowance. So I'll have to trim this one, and these two right here will trim down. Anyway, so let me get it pressed, and I'll show you what it looks like once we get it pressed, and you'll see how it looks. Okay, got it pressed out now. So there's what it looks like on the bottom side. There's our seam allowance, and there's our join. So it came out pretty good. Again, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but the more straight you can do that line from edge to edge, the better it's going to equal right here where you join it. So I'm going to go ahead and use pinking shears and cut my seam allowance here. There's one. There's the other one. And if you want to, you can cut off these little pieces right here that are sticking out. Right there. This fabric frays like crazy when you cut it, and right there. And there's our join. So when we fold it over and put the binding in it, it's really hard to see in that area there where the exact seam is. Seam starts right here and it runs across there. But anyway, that'll show you how to do it, and just do that along the lengths that you need joined together. And I've got mine right here, and so what we're going to do next is get this under the foot. I'm going to change out the presser foot to a narrow foot when I sew this, and we're going to baste the piping on as we fold this over, and we're going to sew a seam. We're not going to get right up next to, get this out of here so you can see it. We're going to fold this over, and when we sew it, we don't want to get too close to the cording here, because when we actually come on and join the two sides together, we don't want our stitch to show. So we're going to baste this first, and I'll stay probably a quarter of an inch away from it just to kind of hold this together. It makes it easier once you sew it on as a beginner. When I actually sew pillows, I do this as I'm sewing it onto the pillow, but I'm going to show you, if you've never done this before, a way to kind of do it to keep it together and keep it under control and make it just a little bit easier on you when you're doing your first few. After you've done a few of them, you can do this, sew this on the pillow all in one sweep, but I'm going to try to make it simple for you. So anyway, let me get the foot changed out. I'm going to put this is actually a zipper foot on this machine. It's a straight stitch only machine, and I can use that instead of this one because this one will probably be a little bit too far away. I want to be a little bit closer to it when I baste it on there. So let me change that out and we'll get started. Okay, I've got the foot changed out. I've got my piping in here, and we folded this over wrong side together. So we're going from there to there, lining our seams up. I don't think my seam is lined up at the beginning here, so let me fix that. There we go. Okay. I'm going to start basting about a little over an inch beyond this area here, because this will be cut off and joined and recut once we join the two ends on the pillow. So I'm leaving about, I don't know, about a quarter of an inch seam allowance here for my basting, putting this on. So hang on a second, this thing keeps pulling too far. They're at about right there, so I don't want to be too close to it, and I'm going to go to a stitch length of 4. So I'm going to do a good long stitch to move through this quickly. Okay, I'm coming towards the end here. And again, my piping is going to be longer than what I actually need. So. And also, when you're cutting your piping, I cut this 2.5 inches wide for this little 3/8 inch binding that I'm using. So cut it extra wide. That way you won't be struggling with what you've got to cover and sew onto the pillow, and it gives you plenty of room. because on this, sometimes it can be a little bit hard to keep these edges perfectly together. So you just want to give yourself enough room to make a little bit more forgiving for any of that imperfection. Okay, I'm not going to sew all the way down here because I know I'm not going to need all of it, but I'll just go to about right there and just do one back stitch, and that's it. So there we go. We've got everything basted together. Stitch is not that long, about 4, and this machine goes up to 8. I just want to do 4 because a lot of you on your home machines, instead of using this foot on your home machine, use a zipper foot. Just don't get right up next to the piping, because if you do, it's going to show once you assemble your pillow, and that'll make sense once we start putting this on the pillow. You'll start seeing what I'm talking about. So alright, that's it for now. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to mark our zipper, and I'll show you how to do that. I'm going to give you a link in the description to where I buy my zippers, and buy it by the yard. It's a lot easier to do this if you buy just a yard of invisible zipper, and you can cut it to the length you need and make it a little bit longer to get the zipper pull out of the way when you sew it on the pillow. It just makes it so much easier. So, and the other thing too, you're not going to be able to use a standard zipper, invisible zipper, like we're going to use. You can't use the standard one you buy for clothing. You need something a little bit heavier, and so I'll put that in the description also, but we'll go through that next when we do the marking and stuff for the zipper. Okay, I'm going to sew the piping onto the front side of one side of the pillow. So that's the first thing, and you're pretty much going to be sewing very close to the basting stitch you did to join the piping fabric together. So anyway, I'm going to go to a stitch length of 3.5 on this one, and get it anchored down on there. So here we go. And we need to leave, let's see here, I need to leave a little bit more of that out, because we need this free when we come back around and join it, because we're going to have to cut the fabric and the piping and stuff to get everything together. So leave yourself plenty of this available for doing that. So, and I'm starting closely to the middle side is where I'm starting. Alright, here we go. Okay, just line your piping up with the edge of your fabric and off you go. Just lining it up with the edge. And when I get down to the end, I'm going to anchor my needle down and get a little bit closer to the piping than I am currently. See how that looks for making the corner. Yeah, that'll work. So I'm just going to do one at an angle, a stitch or two at an angle, and then turn the corner. What I'm noticing is my cording needs to be pulled out of the end here a little bit, tighten it up a little bit. So I'm going to do that. There we go. Okay, now we're going straight down the end again. So now we have some cutting to do. So what we're going to do, need to rip out some stitches here. So you really don't want to back stitch here at the very beginning because you're going to rip some of these stitches out to join your cording together. So I'm just going to go a little bit further here. Alright, there we go. So what I need to do now is get this one cut off. That's the extra that I had. So I've cut it off long enough to where I can join these two and cut the fabric at the angle that I need. So let me get this seam out of here. Now, got that one pulled back. So what we need to do is join these two pieces of piping here at a point. And what I'm going to do is put this piece down here and see where it's going to join. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it. And I'm going to put a piece of tape, piece of Scotch tape around the end of it to keep it from fraying out. So it doesn't take much, just a little piece wrapped around it. Okay, I've got that one. Okay. So I know I'm going to have to cut that one just a little bit more. And this one, quite a bit more actually. Open this seam up here where I can get to it. Alright. So when I lay this one down, it's going to come over this way a little bit more on this side. So I need to pull this one out just a bit. Cut at my join mark. It's going to be about right there. Okay. That one's still a little bit too long, so we'll cut it off. Pull this cord out a little bit. Wrap it with some tape to keep it from fraying out so much. Okay, there we go. Now I pulled this out a little bit so it gives me a little bit of slack. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to tape these two pieces together into one piece. Should have left myself a little bit more room, but we'll make it work. Okay, Okay, I've got those two pieces butted up to the end together, and I'm going to wrap my tape around it. Okay, that'll hold it together. Okay, now we have these two pieces here that we're going to have to join together also. So, tell you what, I'm going to have to rip a few of these stitches out right here. I got a little bit too close. Let me do that off camera, and I'll give myself a little bit more room because we're going to sew these two ends together to make the join. So I need to be able to show you how to do that. So let me do that real quick. Back stitch, get that out, and I'll bring you back here in just a second and we'll show you what we're going to do. But all I'm going to do right now is... Okay, I moved the camera around here. Hopefully it's a better angle. I know my hands may get in the way a couple of times, but hopefully you'll follow this through. Okay, when you cut this off, now before we did this, we cut our cording at the correct length, and then we just tied it together with some tape. So that'll keep it tied together. Okay, so now when we cut these two ends off, you want this piece to be long enough to tuck under by a couple or 3 inches, and then this piece is going to be overlapping by about 2 or 3 inches. Okay, so what we're going to do is take this and wrap it around, put that on the right there on the edge, bring this up, and I'm going to go ahead and fold this up because it tends to hang off and pull this bottom piece away. So I'll bring it up, I'll make it good and tight by pulling it up a little bit, making sure that's under, making sure this piece over here is under. We want everything lined up on the seam. Okay, and now on this one, on the top one, we're going to fold it down to create a 45-degree angle. So just fold that piece over and kind of finger press it, and then you're going to have to tuck it around this other piece. So it becomes a little bit of a tug and war game here of pulling this up and pulling this down. And so if you reach under here and grab all these pieces and you can line them up with the seam, you'll be in good business. So trying to find that piece there. I'm going to pull it tight. Now that I've got it, I'm going to hold it down while I pull this piece back up to try to get everything nice and tight. So that's what we're going to have, is that little bias piece right there. Okay, now that looks nice and tight, and it'll get tighter once we sew the pillows together because we'll be closer to the piping on the stitch once we do it. But we just want to get this locked down where it looks nice. Put that back up so it doesn't pull. Get everything around here again. Check, make sure it's going to be caught by the seam that's going to be sewed. Okay, it looks good. So here we go. Make sure everything is tight. And there's our join. Now it looks a little loose right now, but again, when we come back around and join this, it'll tighten it up along the piping area, and this will be locked down nicely by the stitch that comes and gets closer to the piping. So everything looks a little bit loose right now because it's kind of just basted on. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is put our zipper on. So let me get to the sizing of it and all that. So I'll show you how to mark We're going to mark 1.5 inches in on each side, and that's where we'll start our stitching, but I'll show you that in detail next, so let's do that. Okay, we've got our pieces cut out here, and we have our binding done for our piping. So next thing we need to do is mark off where we're going to install the zipper. So we need to mark it. So, but first let me show you the zippers. When it's time for you to start buying zippers, there's a big difference between the different sizes that you can get for invisible zippers. This is one that you'll find like at Joann. It's made for dresses and pants. And these are the smallest ones. They're like a number 2, if I remember right, 2 or 3. This is a number 4, and I'll verify this with what I bought when I bought this. I think it was a number 4. But anyway, I'll put it down in the description box of this video what the middle size one is. So we've got the smallest one, the dress, pants, invisible zipper. And these I buy by the yard, and I'll give you a source in the description as to where you can get these. And what they do is they sell so many yards, and then they give you pulls for them. So you can cut them to the size you need, then install your pull on there. It makes it a lot easier to sew them on because you can separate them and sew them separately, and then join the pull on after you've got it on each side of your pillow, and it can make it convenient. Anyway, so when I'm using smaller piping, let me give you the size here. This is 3/16 piping that we'll use on this. You want to use a zipper this size. And if you've got larger piping, this is 5/16. So if you have something that fat, you're going to want to use this number 5 zipper. This is an upholsterer's invisible zipper. And I'll give you the source for this also, because when you're sewing it, you need to get it right up next to the teeth, and you got to have enough room down there to tie that down next to the piping when you're installing the piping on, and that will make the distance that you need. This one, and remember, you're not using this side, you're just using this side on the bottom. If you're trying to keep that close to the piping, about right there, you don't really have enough room to get a hold of the zipper tape down here. I mean, I guess you could, but it's really hard. So you want to go with a number 5 because it's much wider, it gives you more room to work with. So if you're going to use large piping, like 5/16, something big like this, use the number 5. We're going to use this one here, and because our piping is smaller, put that away. Anyway, since its piping is smaller, we don't need it to be quite as wide. So anyway, I wanted to show you that, but what we're going to do is go ahead and mark how long of a zipper we need. And it's going to be a little bit longer than what I need. That's fine. That's what's great about this zipper by the yard. I can go down the edge, cut it longer than what I need, sew it on, and I've got plenty of room. Okay, now we're going to install the zipper 1.5 inches in from the edge. So I'm just going to use my little marker here and put a dot where I need it. So I got this right on the edge, and what I want to do is go ahead and line it with the straight part of the edge, then come in 1.5 inches. Put myself a little mark there. Do the same thing on this side. Right on the edge, come in 1.5 inches. Now I'll mark that side. Okay, and then what I want to do is transfer the mark to each side of the zipper also. So I'm just going to put a little dot right there and a little dot right there. Okay, that'll give me the alignment for my zipper on that side. Turn it over. Have to mark this side too. So from this edge, come down 1.5. Put my mark. .5. Put the mark right there. Now I have to turn it over and mark the other side of the zipper. Right there. And there on that side. Okay, we've got it marked. Now when it comes time to sew the zipper on, okay, we're going to sew our invisible zipper on now. So we've got the zipper teeth up, and we have our mark there, and we have our mark here. So we're going to line these two up, and we're going to keep the teeth as close to the piping. So you want to line your teeth up pretty much on top of the piping as you sew this on. So you get this on there, get it under the foot, and I'm not sewing real close to the teeth here. You don't have to, because it's going to be concealed by the piping. So unlike when you're sewing invisible zippers on clothing, you really don't have to get right up next to it. You want to be fairly close, but you don't have to be as close as you do with clothing. So shorten my stitch length up. Here we go. I'm doing a little bit under 3 on this machine. Go ahead and back tack. Okay, here we go. Just keep the teeth as close to that top of that zipper as I can, and I'll sew it on. I mean, it's top of the piping. Okay, I've got my other mark down here. I'm going to make sure my zipper lines up with that mark. And just kind of stretch it and make sure it stays in place. Still lined up with my mark. Stop right at my mark. Back tack. And we have that side on. Okay, so now we will sew the other side to the zipper. So I'm going to find my 2 marks. Cut the thread off. You want to keep all these loose threads cut off when you're sewing on these zippers, because if you don't, one of them will get in the way and It'll hang up in the zipper. Okay, we're going to line that up with the mark. And tell you what, I'm going to get some clips to hold this in place, so let me do that. Let me grab those and I'll be right back. Okay, I've got my clips here, so I'm going to line up the mark here that I have on the zipper with the mark on the fabric. So that's where I'm going to start sewing, and then I just need to come down through here and keep this lined up with the edge. Clip it down. Now I'm going to come down to this end to get my mark lined up with the fabric, where my other mark on the fabric is in the zipper. So make sure that's lined up perfectly. I'm going to put a clip there. Now I have to go down and just kind of work this together, make sure it's even. And I've got the right side of the fabric on the other side, on this bottom side of the zipper here. And I'll do that and just kind of divide and conquer as you put this stuff on. This fabric that I've got is kind of stretchy. And you can use pins instead of the clips. These Wonder clips are really nice. Just line everything up. Alright. Do a couple more here. It's pulling away. Okay, now what we're going to do is sew this end down. So we need to start right here where our mark is. Pull that fabric up there nice and tight. Put our needle down and off we go. Pull that thread back out of the way. There we go. Foot pedal ran away. Okay, here we go. Back stitch. And then we're going to make our way down close to the teeth as we can get it. Kind of pulling the fabric on the bottom back so it lines up again. stop at our mark. Back tack. And our zipper is in. Alright, look for any loose threads that need to be trimmed and get those out of the way. And well, I just pulled the zipper off the tape. I'll have to rejoin it, but anyway, there you go. You've got your invisible zipper tied in. And let me get that reattached. Always fun. But let me do that, and then we'll continue. Just all we have to do now is sew around the edges and we're done. So let me get this fixed and we'll do that next. Okay, I got my zipper pulled, put back on, and so what I'm doing now is, after looking at it, I had a little bit too much space on this side. So I'm coming back down through here with my zipper foot, and I'm getting as close as I can to the feet. So best thing to do is kind of roll the zipper around this way and then get your zipper foot, get the needle as close as you can to these teeth, and it'll help side the zipper. It'll hide the zipper a little bit better. So anyway, this other stitch works kind of as a basting stitch, and then it makes it a lot easier to get closer to the teeth on the second run. So I'm coming down through here, getting a little bit closer to the teeth, and then it should hide my zipper for me. Rolling those teeth to the center so I can get up next to them as close as I can. And I already did it on the other side, so I'm just showing you what I'm doing here. Get it a little bit tighter and make it look a little bit better. Let's have a look at what we've got. Any loose threads here. Some right here. Alright, let's see what we have. Alright, there's our zipper. And that looks much better now. It's hiding it. And this will be cut off to about right here. So I'll go down through here, see if I can open it up. And it shows you again when you get thread caught. Makes it a little bit tough to zip it. Cut these threads. On these invisible zippers, if you get one anywhere near, it'll lock the zipper up. Okay, here we go. You gotta be careful, I don't want to pull it off the and there we go. Okay, so you can see how the piping kind of hides the zipper nicely. So let's go ahead and zip it back up. Now that I'm happy with that. And if you see any areas where it's wider, you can go back with your zipper foot and get a little bit closer to the teeth. So I'm looking at this area right here, and it may not be quite as tight as what I want. So I'll just go back with my zipper foot on this side and get a little bit closer, and we should be good. Okay, next thing we're going to do is put the right sides together, and we'll sew this up. So I'm going to get just a little bit closer over here to the teeth on this side on my next pass. Trying to see what I've got. Tell you what, let me unzip it and do that, because it's getting a little bit wider down here. It's on this side. Yeah, I can see right there where I got quite a bit further away from the teeth. So let me fix that real quick. Thread a little bit longer through my needle. There we go. Alright, closer to the teeth. Let's see what we can do this time. Roll that zipper back. Okay. Just a little bit too close. Gotta roll the teeth back out of the way. Try to keep from sewing my finger in there. Alright, there we go. Just roll the hand wheel here, make sure everything looks okay. Okay, it looks good. Get my stiletto here so I don't sew over my fingers. There we go. That should be better. All right. That's where we'll end. See how we look now. Yeah, that's much better. Alright, so that piping will hide that zipper once it's in the pillow. So now we just go right sides together and we'll sew it together. We need to tie off this end where the zipper is, which means I need to get the zipper up in the middle somewhere. So what we'll do is when we start, we'll start right here. We're going to use our zipper foot so we can stay as close as we can to the piping as we go around. And let me get everything set up and we'll do that next. Okay, now all we need to do is sew around and put it together. So I've got all these clips to hold it together. So we're going to start right here where the zipper ends, and we're going to just fold the zippers together flat. And then we'll put it under the foot. And we'll start right there, and we're feeling for we need to get as close as we can right now to the where I can find it here. Anyway, we need to be as close as we can to the binding on this. So I'm going to start right where the zipper ends, right there. And I'm going to do a stitch length of about 3 on this. Back tack. Here we go. So as close to that piping as I can. I've got my zipper foot on. Alright, as soon as I get around the corner, I've got some slack to take out here to get this flat, so I've got to pull on it. Okay, I'm going to stay right up next to that piping. Okay, here we go. Looking good. Continue to pull on it, get it good and tight. Pull under, make sure everything's good and flat. Okay, I'm coming up on the end here where the zipper is, so I see my marks right there. So I'm going to come up to this stitch right here and lock it off. Stay close to that piping to get it good and close. I've hit my point there, so I'm back stitch, and we are done. Any loose threads here that I need to cut. All right. One more there and right there. Okay, let's unzip it. And don't forget to leave your zipper open enough to where when you sew it up you can get your hand in there and get it opened up. Look at our corners here, make sure the piping is good and tight. That looks good. Okay, we'll look at this corner. Make sure it looks alright. It's good and tight. And that corner where the zipper goes in is just right. Alright. Tell you what, let me get the camera moved around and we'll get the pillow in here and we'll have a look at it, see how it looks like with a pillow in it. Okay, we have our pillow form in and everything looks really nice. Nice piping all the way around. Have our invisible zipper right here and you can see it's hidden by the piping. But if you peel the piping back you can see the zipper a bit, but that's fine. Open it and close it. When you close your zippers, if you want to get rid of the pull tab, just right before you get it closed all the way to the end, you can just stuff it down into the in between the zipper there and then just pull the tab over and it'll hide it nicely. So if you don't want it sticking out, maybe where it doesn't stick someone when they have it in their lap or something like that, it's easy to do that. Anyway, so you can see that we don't have the big dog ears from tapering. And what's funny, even though you tapered that much, you still can see how it still comes out a little bit, but imagine it coming out another inch or so without that. So you can decide if that's something you want to do or not, but I really like the look of the pillows without those big dog ears on them, so I always do that. But anyway, that concludes it. If you have any questions at all, feel free to ask them. I'll be happy to respond. And that's it for now, guys, so take care.